It happens in the silence between heartbeats. You're standing in your kitchen. The coffee brews. Light filters through the window at that particular slant it always does at 7:43 a.m. Your hand reaches for the mug. The same mug, the same motion, the same Tuesday. And then, a fracture. A microsecond where you're watching yourself from somewhere else. Where the person moving through this familiar choreography feels borrowed, inhabited. Like you're wearing a costume of routines stitched together by someone who knew your measurements but never asked your permission. The moment passes. You blink. You drink your coffee. But the question lingers like smoke. Who was just living that moment? Because it wasn't quite you. So who then? Who is this presence wearing your habits like a second skin? Who speaks your words, makes your decisions, smiles at your coworkers, scrolls through your phone with your thumbs? And here's where it gets strange. What if that sensation, that uncanny feeling of living at one remove from yourself, isn't a glitch? What if it's a glimpse of something true? Today, we're going to follow that fracture. We're going to trace the boundary between the life you think you're living and the life that's being lived through you. We're descending into the architecture of selfhood itself, into psychology, neuroscience, quantum mechanics, and the mystic traditions that have been whispering this secret for millennia. By the end, you might not recognize the person staring back from the mirror, and that might be the most honest thing that's ever happened to you. Picture an infant, pure consciousness, pure impulse, a tiny being whose entire reality is need and expression. The baby cries, "I need," and if the mother, the world, responds with attunement, something fundamental is encoded into the nervous system. My needs matter. My being is acceptable. I am allowed to exist as I am. But what happens when the world can't respond? When the mother is exhausted, depressed, absent? When the household values obedience over authenticity? The infant adapts. It shapes its impulses into something safer, something the environment will tolerate. It learns to smile when it's frightened, to quiet itself when it's overwhelmed, to become manageable, agreeable, digestible. It creates a mask, a version of itself that can survive without disrupting the fragile world around it. A self that is functional, but not necessarily alive. Psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott called this the false self. A protective persona so effective that, with time, it can eclipse the original being beneath it, leaving a person outwardly successful yet inwardly hollow, performing a life that doesn't feel like their own. You grow up. You achieve things, you build relationships, careers, routines, and still, in quiet moments, there's a whisper. I'm acting, I'm performing, this isn't mine. Because to survive, you once constructed someone else, and that someone else has been living your life ever since. Two inhabitants under one skin. First, the authentic self, spontaneous, creative, vulnerable. Second, the adaptive self, acceptable, efficient, safe, and somewhere along the way, the second gently, silently colonized the first. Now let's scale this up. You are not just shaped by your family. You're shaped by civilization itself, a vast, intricate network of expectations, norms, beliefs, and invisible rules that begin programming you before you can speak. Social conditioning works like a sculptor chiseling away, molding us and binding us, sometimes unraveling the essence of who we might have been. Think about it. According to Harvard psychologist Herbert Kellman, there are 3 types of conformity: compliance, outward appearance regardless of internal belief; identification, motivated by desire to be accepted; and internalization, when conforming ideas become congruent with one's values. Most people never reach that third stage consciously. They internalize without examination. The beliefs become so embedded, they feel like self, like truth, like just how things are. Conformity occurs because it's often easier to follow the path others have made already, rather than forging a new one. From subtle unconscious influences to overt social pressure, the collective shapes you. You wear the clothes your culture says are appropriate. You pursue the career your class considers legitimate. You structure your relationships according to inherited templates. You experience desire through the lens of advertisements. You think in the language that was given to you, and language itself shapes what you can conceive. So ask yourself, how much of what I call my life is actually mine? How much of it is a script I downloaded without reading the terms and conditions? Let's go deeper, into the machinery itself. Your brain is not a unified thing. It's a parliament of competing processes, most of which never report to consciousness. Studies on neural timing reveal something disturbing. Self-awareness occurs too late to be the cause of relevant actions. It's more like a post-facto printout, a result displayed on a screen rather than the actual processor operations. In other words, you don't make most of your decisions. Your brain makes them. Then it generates a narrative, a story in which you were the author all along. The conscious self is a press secretary, not the president. It spins the decisions that have already been made into a coherent tale of agency. Neuroscientist Benjamin Libet famously showed that brain activity associated with a decision begins up to half a second before conscious awareness of that decision. Your neurons fire, your body prepares, and then you choose. So who's living your life in those 500 milliseconds? Something beneath the threshold, something ancient, something that doesn't require your permission. The autopilot, a constellation of habits, reflexes, learned patterns, emotional associations, and survival algorithms running continuously in the background. It walks you to work. It navigates conversations. It reaches for your phone when you're anxious. It selects your lunch. It chooses your words. And it's extraordinarily good at its job. Social conditioning becomes so normal, we don't stop to question it, until these patterns bump up against our authentic needs. You feel the friction, the dissonance, the sense that you're piloting a vehicle someone else built to someone else's specifications. Now, let's shatter the frame entirely. What if the self isn't even a thing that exists in the way you imagine? Quantum mechanics has revealed something profound about reality. Observation collapses possibility into actuality. Before you measure a particle's position, it exists in a superposition, simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. The act of observation selects one reality from infinite potential. Now apply this to consciousness. There's a theory that suggests all instances of consciousness are expressions of one singular entity, observing from every potential point, with death simply moving observation to another point in time when a new organism comes online. Think about it. You experience only one point of view, this point of view. But you cannot know if other minds exist. Each of us is sealed in an impermeable prison cell of subjective awareness, able only to infer the existence of other minds through indirect means. Philosophers call this the problem of other minds, solipsism, the extreme position that only your consciousness exists and everything else is projection. But what if we invert it? What if there's only one consciousness, wearing 7 billion masks? What if you, the singular awareness perceiving these words, are the same consciousness that has lived every life, experienced every perspective, suffered every tragedy, celebrated every joy. You're not living someone else's life. You're living everyone's life, just not simultaneously, not from this vantage point. The Indian philosophy of Advaita Vedanta has said this for millennia. Tattvam asi, thou art that. The self you experience is not separate from the universal self. According to the Bhagavad Gita, consciousness is the symptom of the soul, and there are two types of consciousness, finite and infinite, coexisting in the body. Your finite consciousness, the you that feels trapped in this particular skin, is a localized expression of something infinite, which means the someone else whose life you're living. It might be the deepest you there is. Let's take this further. There's growing speculation in physics and computer science about simulation theory, the hypothesis that our reality is a computational substrate, a rendered environment running on hardware we can't perceive. If that's true, then you are not the player. You're the character. The player is somewhere else, outside the game, controlling your actions through a controller you can't see, making decisions according to logic you don't fully comprehend. And sometimes, the character becomes conscious of being a character. That's the feeling, that dissociation, that moment in your kitchen. You're the NPC who glitched into awareness. But here's the twist. Even if we're not in a simulation, the structure is functionally identical. Your brain is running a model of reality. Not reality itself, a model, a user interface, a simplified, interpreted, delayed representation of what's actually happening out there in the electromagnetic chaos. You never touch the world directly. You touch your nervous system's interpretation of it. You don't see wavelengths, you see colors. You don't hear pressure waves, you hear sounds. You don't experience space-time, you experience now and here. And within that model, your brain constructs a character, you, a coherent narrative entity that persists across time. A story told so convincingly that it mistakes itself for the storyteller. But what if the storyteller is something else entirely? What if the consciousness experiencing this moment is not identical to the character it's watching? Here's an experiment. Right now, as you hear these words, there's an awareness present. Something is witnessing the experience of comprehension. Focus on it, not the content, the awareness itself. Who or what is that? Is it your name? No. Your name is just a label. Is it your memories? No. Those are just data. Is it your personality? No. That shifts based on context, mood, medication, sleep. Is it your body? No. Cells replace themselves constantly. You're not the same body you were 7 years ago. So what is it? Mystics across traditions have pointed to the same answer. The witness, pure awareness itself, consciousness without content. And here's the revelation, that awareness has no qualities. It doesn't belong to you. It's not personal. It doesn't have preferences, histories, fears, desires. Those are all objects appearing in awareness, not the awareness itself. So when you feel like you're living someone else's life, maybe you're experiencing a rare moment of clarity. Maybe you're seeing through the illusion of the personal self. Maybe you're recognizing that the thing you call I is just a construction, a useful fiction that allows a body to navigate social reality. And the thing that's actually living this life, it's not personal at all. It's the same impersonal awareness that's living every life, everywhere, always. You feel like you're living someone else's life because the you that owns nothing is witnessing the life of the you that claims everything. Let's tear open another seam. You think you have a self because you have memories, a story, a timeline. a coherent, continuous narrative of me stretching from childhood to this exact moment. But psychologists have known for decades that memory is not a record, it's a reconstruction. Every time you recall an event, you rewrite it. You lace it with new context, new emotional coloring, new assumptions. You update the past to fit the identity you think you have today. Neuroscientist Daniela Schiller calls memory a fragile, living document, one that is being edited every time it's opened. Trauma rewires memory, culture rewires memory, expectation rewires memory, which leads to a disturbing question. If memory is a constantly rewritten script, then who is the writer? Because it sure isn't the stable, unchanging you imagine yourself to be. That entity, the continuous autobiographical self, is more myth than reality. Your mind generates a fictional protagonist to give the story cohesion, a main character, a narrator, a center. But what if that center is empty? Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna argued 1,800 years ago that the self is a collection of aggregates, form, sensation, perception, mental formations, none of which possess inherent identity. Take them apart, and there is no core, no permanent essence. Modern neuroscience agrees. The self is a network effect, not an object. A pattern, not a thing. A process, not a presence. So when you feel like you're living someone else's life, maybe it's because you are. You're living the life of the character your mind continuously fabricates, a character who never existed in the first place. Now let's fracture time itself. You think the self is something formed by the past, but what if it is also shaped by the future? In physics, certain interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest retrocausality, effects that seem to precede their causes. Experiments in neuroscience show anticipatory responses. The body reacts a few seconds before unexpected stimuli occur. The heart responds before the brain. The nervous system prepares before the event. Emotion rises before the trigger, which means part of you lives slightly ahead of you in time. A shadow self cast forward, a future echo, a version of you that already knows what's coming. What if the sensation of living someone else's life is actually the feeling of being guided by a self that already exists in the future? A self you haven't caught up to yet. A self that's pulling you through time like a magnet through space. There are moments, rare, disorienting, unforgettable, when the fabric of the ordinary world feels thinner. Déjà vu, synchronicity, sudden emotional waves without cause, dreams that bleed into waking life, the feeling of being watched from the inside, the eerie sense that the script was written moments before you speak your lines. The Celts called such moments thin places, locations or states where the boundary between worlds grows porous. But the thin place isn't a location. It's an internal shift. Your brain relaxes the model of reality it normally enforces. The sense of self loosens its grip. The world reveals itself not as solid, fixed, or singular, but as layered, fluid, interpenetrated by countless possibilities. During these moments, you feel like you're living someone else's life because the walls between identities, timelines, and selves momentarily dissolve. The character breaks. The player shows through. The watcher stirs. The mask slips. And you glimpse the truth. The self you think you are is not the consciousness that is living your life. It is simply one of the masks consciousness wears. Here's the twist. You spent your life believing you were looking out at the world. But the world is also looking back at you. Not metaphorically, literally. Every moment you observe something, your coffee mug, your lover's face, the dusk sky. The universe must generate that moment's reality at the exact interface where consciousness meets form. You think you're seeing the world, but the world is also seeing itself through you, which means the someone who has been living your life is not an intruder. It's not a shadow. It's not a glitch. It's the universe experiencing itself from your vantage point. That's why the life feels both intimate and foreign, because it is. Up until now, everything has pointed toward a single idea. You are not who you think you are. But here's the final inversion. The person you think you are is not the illusion. The split between you and something else is the illusion. There is no you and the other one. No. Authentic self versus false self. Autopilot versus witness. Character versus player. Brain versus consciousness. There is only one process, one movement, one continuous unfolding that appears fractured when viewed from inside time. The feeling of living someone else's life is not an error in perception. It is the moment the illusion collapses. Because the final truth is this: there was never a separate self to begin with. There was only consciousness moving through form, animating matter, experiencing itself under 1,000 masks, one of which you have been calling me. You were never the character. You were never the mask. You were never even the observer. You were the thing that makes observing possible, the light behind the eyes, the screen on which the movie plays. And when you sense the fracture, when you feel like life is being lived through you, that is the real you catching your reflection in the mirror of existence. You have never been living someone else's life. You have been living the life of the consciousness that dreamed you into being.